Welcome to Walking the Torah Portions. I'm Tyler Merwin, and this is Torah Portion, EKEV. This week's Torah portion is Deuteronomy 7:12 through 11:25. The Haftarah this week is Isaiah 49:14 through 51:3. EKEV means as a result or because. As in our opening line, it states, "And because you listen to these rules and keep and do them, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, will keep with you the covenant and the steadfast love that he swore to your fathers." Deuteronomy 7:12. This week's portion continues in Deuteronomy 7. Our portion begins with Moses encouraging the people by telling them of all the promises and blessings God has for them if they will follow and obey him with love. He will love you, bless you, and multiply you. He will also bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your ground, your grain and your wine and your oil, the increase of your herds and the young of your flock, in the land that he swore to your fathers to give you. You shall be blessed above all peoples. There shall not be male or female barren among you or among your livestock. That last line would be more accurately translated that no infertile male or infertile female will be among you or your livestock. It's kind of a weird world we live in today where we even need to think about a male being barren and coming to all kinds of crazy notions. This again emphasizes that being fertile and producing offspring is a blessing, even though it's not viewed in this way in our modern societies. Children are only considered blessings in society today if they are A, planned, and B, kept in low numbers, preferably 1 to 2 per family. This is a shame, as the body of Messiah as a whole keeps these same anti-biblical views. Children are a blessing, period, whether you were given 1 or 20. There are those among the body who the Father hasn't given children. If you are living a life of obedience to the Holy One, producing love and good fruit, then the lack of children is not a curse or a punishment from God. We are still in a fallen world with sickness and infertility, but in the not too distant future, Messiah will change all of that. And Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh will take away from you all sickness and none of the evil diseases of Egypt, which you knew, will he inflict on you, but he will lay them on all who hate you. Deuteronomy 7:15. This is a promise that we are all eagerly awaiting for. Yeshua tells us that our Father causes the sun to rise and the rain to fall on the just and the unjust alike, the evil and the good. But I think the time is near when there will be a distinction made between his people and those that are against him. There was light in Goshen when there was darkness in Egypt. If you say in your heart, "These nations are greater than I, how can I dispossess them?" You shall not be afraid of them, but you shall remember what Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh your God did to Pharaoh and to all Egypt, the great trials that your eyes saw, the signs, the wonders, the mighty hand, and the outstretched arm, by which Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh your God brought you out. So will Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh your God do to all the peoples of whom you are afraid. Deuteronomy 7:17 through 19. We need to remember that God's battles are God's, and we don't need to rely on fighting them with our own abilities. Moreover, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh your God will send hornets among them, until those who are left and hide themselves from you are destroyed. Deuteronomy 7:20. The word for hornet here is zirah, which is a supernatural insect. It's only found 3 times in the Tanakh or Old Testament. In Exodus 23 and here, where Moses foretells of its use, and then finally in Joshua 24, after its use, where they drove out the Amorites. The root of zirah is sarah, which is to be stricken with leprosy. Remember that leprosy wasn't a random condition in the Bible. It was an affliction brought on by unrepentant sin, usually lashon hara, slander or evil speech. Leprosy was a kind of torment or punishment but not one that caused death. It was something that God put on a guilty person. The tzira, or hornets, are also sent by God to guilty people, in this case the Amorites, to torture and drive them out of hiding and out of the land. In Revelation 9, it appears that God will use these tzira again, or something like them, described as locusts, to torment but not kill the guilty yet again. The rest of chapter 7 tells of how the land will be given to them little by little, so the wild beasts won't overtake the uninhabited land. It also relates how everything must be devoted to destruction, which is known as being under the ban, and that they should not keep any of the gold or the silver, especially the idols. And you shall remember the whole way that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, has led you these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might humble you, testing you to know what is in your heart, whether you should keep his commandments or not. Deuteronomy 8:2. Chapter 8 goes on to remind them of how God tested them by the manna to realize that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Deuteronomy 8:3. Testing is an integral part of training. Testing is done to show us where we are, how well we know the material, the skill, or the lesson that we have been learning. The results of the test show us where we need to improve, as well as where we're doing good. Testing is usually not very fun, but it is very necessary. Your clothing did not wear out, and your foot did not swell these 40 years. Deuteronomy 8:4. This speaks of the supernatural state that they were in while they were in the wilderness. The sages describe this as being in the cloud of glory that enveloped the whole camp of Israel. The verse goes on to say that God disciplines us like a man disciplines his son. His discipline is not to cause us harm, but to get us back on track so that he can bless us. Verse 7 begins to lay out all the wonderful blessings that are awaiting them in the land. After describing this, he reminds them, "And you shall eat and be full, and you shall bless Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, for the good land that he has given you." Deuteronomy 8:10. This again is the commandment for grace after meals. Moses then warns them of the lure of pitfalls of prosperity and how easily we deceive ourselves into thinking that it was us and not God who actually did it. Beware lest you say in your heart, "My power and the might of my hand have gotten me this wealth." You shall remember Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your fathers, as it is to this day. Deuteronomy 8:17 and 18. This trap so easily ensnares us even today, and the root of it is our own pride. Chapter 9 begins telling Israel that they are going over to dispossess nations, people, and cities greater, stronger, and mightier than themselves. Know therefore today that he who goes over before you as a consuming fire is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God. He will destroy them and subdue them before you. So you shall drive them out and make them perish quickly, as Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh has promised you. Deuteronomy 9:3. As we have stated before, our awesome God is a consuming fire, and we should have nothing to fear if he is fighting for us. Not because of your righteousness or the uprightness of your heart are you going in to possess their land, but because of the wickedness of these nations, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, is driving them out from before you, and that he may confirm the word that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Deuteronomy 9:5. There are two reasons God is giving Israel the land of promise. 1. The wickedness of the inhabitants has now completely filled the cup of Adonai's wrath. And 2, God promised the land to the patriarchs, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. The land was not being given due to the righteous merit of the current generation. We also are not going to inherit the kingdom because of how great we are, but by the shed blood of Yeshua and our Father's mercy and grace. Remember and do not forget how you provoked Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, to wrath in the wilderness, from the day you came out of the land of Egypt until you came to this place. You have been rebellious against Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Deuteronomy 9:7. The rest of chapter 9 chronicles different rebellions and failures that they have gone through since their deliverance from the Egyptian captivity. Moses recounts going up on the mountain to receive the commandments for 40 days and 40 nights, where he did not eat or drink. He is called down from the mountain because of the golden calf. Moses breaks the 2 tablets in front of the people, the tablets that were cut and written by Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh himself. The chronology jumps around quite a bit through this section, but Moses is telling us to make thematic points about Israel's sins, Moses' intercession, and God's forgiveness. This is primarily proving the point that they are not being given the promised land because they deserved it. At Taberah, also at Massah, and at Kibroth Hattaavah, you provoked Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh to wrath. Deuteronomy 9:22. Taberah is from Numbers 11:1, and this was a time when there was complaint in the camp, and there was a consuming fire sent as judgment that consumed the outskirts. At Massah, you can find it Exodus 17:1, and this is where they complained about the provisions and they got water from the rock the first time. And Kibroth Hattaavah is from Numbers 11:31, and this is with the rabble with the strong craving complained and got the whole camp stirred up, and they ended up getting a bunch of quail and a plague along with it. Moses also reminds them that their fathers refused to enter the land at that time. He prayed and interceded for the people for 40 days and 40 nights, not to destroy the people, but to remember his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that the nations would say that God was unable to bring his people out if they were destroyed. Moses reminds God that his people are his heritage. He then recounts that he was commanded to cut out for himself 2 tablets like the first, to make an ark of acacia wood, and to come back up the mountain. God wrote again the 10 words on these tablets, the exact same writing that was on the first set of tablets. Moses put these into the ark that he had made and brought them back down to the people. There are 2 different opinions from the sages regarding this temporary ark and the broken set of the first tablets. The first is that the new tablets were placed in the golden ark of the covenant under the mercy seat, while the broken tablets were placed in the temporary ark, and that it was that ark that would be brought out by the war priest during times of battle. The majority opinion, though, says that both the new tablets and the broken ones were both placed in the golden ark of the covenant, and the temporary ark was kept and hidden away somewhere. The people of Israel journeyed from Be'eroth Bnei Yachan to Moserah. There Aaron died, and there he was buried, and his son Eleazar ministered as priest in his place. Deuteronomy 10:6. Though we know things aren't in chronological order here, it seems very odd to include the death of Aaron in this spot, as his death wouldn't occur for another 38 years or so after Mount Sinai. The sages see Moses' placement as relating the tablets to Aaron. Even though the broken tablets were replaced, there was a deep loss when the first set was broken. Likewise, when Aaron died, he was replaced by Eleazar, who was a righteous man and a great high priest. But losing Aaron was still a huge loss, as losing the first set of tablets was also a huge loss. Moses continues with the selection of the Levites and the admonition to move forward. And now, Israel, what does Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh your God require of you, but to fear Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh your God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to serve Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and to keep the commandments and statutes of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, which I am commanding you today for your good. Moses reminds us that following Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh and his commandments is for our good, because he loves us. Circumcise, therefore, the foreskin of your heart, and be no longer stubborn or stiff-necked. Deuteronomy 10:16. I was always taught in church that circumcising your heart was a New Testament idea, and that circumcision in your flesh was an outdated Old Testament idea. So, when Paul wrote to the believers in Rome, speaking against the need for Gentiles to ritually convert to Judaism, his reference to having one's heart circumcised, which is Romans 2:29, is actually a Torah commandment. Yeshua said in Matthew 15:19, "For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, slander." Remember that the heart, which is lev in Hebrew, is very much related to what we think of as our mind in our modern day. So our thoughts, our knowledge, our determination, our conscience, as well as our emotions and passions come from the heart. Now we can see easily that if we don't circumcise our hearts, we won't be able to follow God in the way he desires us to. In chapter 11, Moses reviews how God delivered them from Pharaoh and the judgment of Dathan and Abiram. He reminds them that the promised land is not like Egypt, a land that you controlled things, but a land that depends on God to send rain in its due seasons. But the land that you are going over to possess is a land of hills and valleys, which drinks water by the rain from heaven, a land that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh your God cares for. The eyes of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh your God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Deuteronomy 11:11 and 12. The land of Israel is set apart from all lands on this earth. This is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh's land, a land that he has given all of us who are his people, the whole house of Israel. Verses 13 through 21 are also considered a portion of the whole Shema that we covered last week. It mentions much of what is in Deuteronomy 6:4 through 9, but also includes promises for the land and for rain, and promises that our days and the days of our children will be multiplied. Our portion ends with, "No one shall be able to stand against you. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh your God will lay the fear of you and the dread of you on all the land that you shall tread, as he promised you." Deuteronomy 11:25. Again, as Holisa has said, if we are obedient to the Holy One, we will be Torahfying to our enemies. We look forward to the future when Messiah will remove all infertility and disease from among us. He will gather us together again into a supernatural cloud of glory that has both provision and protection. So let us circumcise our hearts so we can be conformed into the likeness of our Savior, Yeshua. I pray this teaching has been edifying. Let's lift up the name of the Holy One with love in Echad. Shalom.